I worked for 43 years in telecommunications. I started out as a technician installing central offices. I became an engineer. I worked for the phone company until '97. I retired from there. I worked for Alcatel-Lucent, which was a company that I worked for when 9/11 happened. Called my boss on the 12th and told him I'm going down to the city. So he goes, I don't think, I says, I'm going, I will get there, I will call you from the city. So I drove all the way down to southern Manhattan. Unfortunately, I got lost in the side streets because I knew how to get there by walking, but I didn't know how to get there by driving. I got caught in the side streets, and the silt from all the buildings, when they came down and everything else, started filling up the inside of the car. I had the air conditioner on, I had internal air, it just kept blowing in, and it was like, there was nothing I could do. I was like in a cloud in a cloud. And southern Manhattan was just, it looked like, I guess you could say it looked like a moon landing. It looked like moon dust. It was just a fine silt all over everything. We went out to Arizona for about 3 weeks, and that's when I started having breathing problems, constant cough. I just started going, physically I started going downhill. Prior to this, I'm an avid runner. I've run 18 marathons, Boston Marathon, everything else. 2002, I could hardly run at all. By 2004, I could just about walk out the door and to my car. So it got really bad. And it's been a fight ever since. From 2002 to 2005, the most I could sleep was maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours a night. And then I'd nap during the day. I coughed non-stop, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Just couldn't stop coughing, no matter what. Just coughed and coughed and coughed. Just wouldn't stop. So, even today when I get a sinus infection, which I get 6 or 7 a year, I cough for weeks. Just can't stop. Won't go away. 3 years ago, one of my grandsons came to me and said, "Papa, how come you don't smile?" And he said this, and I went, And I'm saying to myself, you know what? He's probably right. I mean, I've been walking around with sinus headache for 8 years now. And as bad as it gets sometimes and everything else, or basically is, on a good day, I might be able to chuckle a little bit. On a bad day, it's just, there's nothing. It's just constant pain.
The first plane had just hit when I was on the subway platform area. And I can remember the shock wave of the first plane. All the people that were actually on the stairs getting blown down the flight of stairs. And first, I mean, the sound was incredible. Even that, underground, it was extremely loud. So at first I thought, maybe it was like a car bomb or something like that. A lot of people were just looking up, trying to make sense out of what happened, because these people had seen the plane. At this point, I still didn't know that it was a plane. I just could tell that it was an explosion, and then I heard people talking that a plane hit. And like I said, I was a fireman, a volunteer fireman, and so I went to my office and I checked in everybody that knew my background. I said to them, I'm gonna go across the street to the firehouse on Liberty Street, which was the southern street of the World Trade Center complex. So I made it to the firehouse, and the guys at that firehouse were out at another call. They were at a gas leak at the time, but the captain of the truck company happened to be in quarters. So I introduced myself, I identified myself, showed him my badge, and said, I am a fireman. If you can use me, great. If not, I'll get out of your way. And he just looked at me and said, "You're all I have. So you're in charge of triage." So he had me start dealing with a lot of the medical aspect of what was going on in the firehouse, because by the time I got there, there were several walking wounded or other civilians who had been carried in by coworkers or strangers. And it just became a big repository for injured people. One man was a broken pelvis. Another was a woman who had been on fire. Another was someone complaining with hearing problems. A lot of people just more like bangs and bumps, bruises type things. But the other, like I said, the woman on fire, I'll never forget. The captain at this point was putting together a team to go across the street, and I said to him, you're putting a search team together. I said, that's I'm a truckie in the fire department. That means search is your bread and butter, and that's more forcible entry. But I said to him, you're putting a search team together. I can be a lot of value to that. Do you want me to switch over? He was like, no, keep doing what you're doing. And it turned out to be a good thing for me, because I guess about 10 minutes later, I watched these 8 guys, maybe even less than 10 minutes, these 8 guys went across the street, and the civilians out front started screaming again. And I was like, what's the matter? They go, it's coming down. I go, what's coming down the plane? And they were like, no, the tower. So the tower that they were going into is where they got, they ended up getting killed. It was a lot of different things going on for me, that particular situation. Later on, it was just a lot of survivor guilt as well, because, why them, not me? What happened was, when the tower came down, now the front of the firehouse you couldn't get out of. They estimate that the wind speed where we were when the towers came down was about 140 miles an hour. So I was in the truck room, but I was about 6 feet away from a back wall, a cinder block wall, and I got thrown into that wall. So everything just went black. You couldn't breathe. You were choking on all the debris. When you work in the city, a lot of times you walk past like a lot of the delis and have flowers out front, and I couldn't walk past them, because the smell of the flowers is just like being in another funeral home. So I remember I couldn't walk past the delis. Couldn't go to Home Depot, and people were like, Home Depot? I'm like, yeah, you don't understand. The ash was a lot like sheetrock, and it had that same smell. Okay, and so couldn't deal with that. Couldn't look at bacon for at least a year. Again, it goes back to when the woman was on fire. That's what she looked like, and it just couldn't deal with that. I think it's had an impact on a lot of different parts of my life. It's just hard to say. I mean, certain things I find don't matter, and other things I pay more attention to. I mean, like here's a silly example. Like I travel a lot. Okay, before 9/11, I loved the window seat. I get on a plane, I sit down, I close my eyes. The person next to me can get up and go to walk around as many times as they want. Didn't bother me, because I was tucked against the window. Now I only take an aisle seat, and if it's, as long as it's available. And again, it's because of when you think about what they went through in Pennsylvania. You always get one shot, as long as you can recognize it. God forbid something happens, I don't have to climb over somebody's grandmother or somebody to get at that one shot.
I was up on a pile the one time with the firemen, and we thought we found something, and we moved some debris, and its green smoke came out of the ground and knocked us all out. Till today, I don't know what it is. They said it could have been Freon. It could have been anything. It just like cut the air out of us. And we were all choking. And that's when all my problems began. The day I was on that pile, when that green smoke came out, when I fell down, thank God one of the guys said, fill out a piece of paper. And I did. So November 13th, I'll never forget the day, '01, is when I went to my primary physician. And he told me that I had bronchitis and asthma. I said, bronchitis and asthma. He said, did I ever smoke? I said, never smoked a day in my life. And I had a physical every year on the job. So he gave me all kinds of inhalers to breathe. And I had that cough, this loud cough that I have until today. It's unbelievable, especially at night. I went to, the union had us go see some specialists, which I went to go see. I wound up getting restricted airway disease. Because of my lung disease caused me to have a heart attack because of the steroids they were giving me, that I couldn't move, I couldn't exercise, I blew up like a balloon, and I had a heart attack on top of that, and PTSD. At home, when I'm laying in bed in the summer, you hear the crickets going, you know the crickets? Right, sure. This chirping, and it brings me back down to ground zero. And I couldn't figure out why it always made me back to ground zero. And my wife, when she lights a log, you know, to sit out in the backyard, the burning of the ash brings me back, and I have a panic attack. So that's how my whole life changed. I can't go in the pool because of the chlorine brings on the attack from my asthma. But a lot of the body parts that I found stay in my mind. The smell, because that thing burned for so long, and a lot of things were like mummified, you know, that stays in my head. When I was on search and I was crawling in between the tunnels, you know, that's scary for me because I don't know if things were going to fall on top of me. And I had no radio to tell anybody if I was down there. So I just had my water pack. So if that thing would have caved on me, that would have been the end of Ken. You wouldn't have heard of me no more, you know?
There was no buddy system or anything employed?
Well, we had 2 guys up there, but still, you know, you can't, it's not the same. Right. You know, you're still going down there. And, you know, something comes down, they got to run the other way, you know? So, but that stays in my mind. And the people's family members, you know, seeing them, and they're asking you to find their relatives, and that stays in my mind because I couldn't find anything for them. I couldn't give them closure. One lady says, how could you still think about 9/11? You know, you have to forget about it. All right. You're right. You're 100% right. I got to forget about it. But every morning I wake up, I got to take 29 pills. Now, why I got to take these pills? Because I got sick from 9/11. So how am I going to forget it? You know, that's the part that people don't realize. Every day I got to take medication because I was down there, you know? And every day when I cough and I can't breathe and I'm in the hospital and I have oxygen tanks at home, you know, I'm 46 years old now. I shouldn't be on all this medication. I shouldn't have heart problems, lung disease, PTSD. You know, I shouldn't have none of this stuff.